All right, so if you've just joined, welcome. I'm Maria from the EditorX team. Welcome, and welcome not just to this webinar, but also welcome to EditorX. We're doing this webinar especially for you guys who are new to the platform, who want to help you get started, find your way around, find all of the features and tools. It's really exciting to see so many of you here and joining. What we're gonna cover today is you'll see a live walkthrough of building a site on EditorX by one of our very own product managers, Sebi, who's here with us. And we're going to cover a lot of the key features on the platform. We'll do an overview of the workspace itself, get you familiar with the canvas. We'll walk you through the structuring of a site. We'll dig into some of the responsive layout tools like your CSS grid, some of the flex layouts we've got. And we'll also dig into customizing across breakpoints, super useful, flipping between screen sizes and redesigning your site. And again, if you've just joined, we will be recording this session, and it will be available soon from our homepage. You'll be able to get a link to it so you can watch and recap and rewatch some of the things, because there's going to be a lot that Sebi will show you today. So you might want a little recap afterwards. Other useful links, if you go to sammilodesign.com, you'll be able to see the website that Sebi is recreating. So you can check it out and maybe try and recreate it yourselves after you're watching this webinar. And another really important note before we get started, what Sebi will cover today is literally the tip of the iceberg in the EditorX world. So anything we do cover, you'll find tons more info and learning resources about it in our academy. There are lots of videos and exercises there and lessons and images to explain stuff. So if you go to editorx.com/academy, you'll see a lot of the resources there. And during the webinar, if you have questions about certain things, we might refer you to some of these lessons if you want to dig a little bit deeper. But this resource is always here for you to dive in and learn. And one other, and then I'll shut up and let Sebi talk, is one other important resource is the forum. You can also access it from our homepage. It's called Community X, and product managers like Sebi are there answering questions, sharing new product and feature releases there. And there's lots of lively discussions and people sharing their websites and asking technical questions. So it's a really great place to join if you want to continue building on EditorX. You'll get lots of useful information there. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now and hand you over to Sebi. Would you like to just introduce yourself?
Well, thank you so much, Maria. Hi, guys. I'm Sebi. I'm a product manager for EditorX, and I'm also the beta program manager. In my free time, I enjoy replying to users' feedback and also speaking to users. They call me the people's champion here on the team. So today we're going to go and cover a few things of the basics of EditorX. And we're going to be actually looking into the site and showing you how we actually built the site. So what we're going to cover, so we're going to see here we have a proportionally scaling site. And you can see also that we have in the same exact site, we have a grid. And in this grid, you can actually find all these really responsive capabilities that we have available in EditorX. And we can also see here we have an image with parallax scrolling. We're going to learn a little bit about responsive repeaters as well. And also we'll show you some video options. And also we'll go into layouters, which is our Flexbox technology that we use for EditorX. But let's just take one more look and see the site and see how it actually is responsive. So we can see that everything is kind of scaling here and it switches between breakpoints. This is a tablet. You can see how it actually is a little bit different now. And it actually can be adapted per breakpoint. So we're going to be looking and understanding how we can achieve all these designs today.
Great.
So let's go ahead.
Just if you do have questions as Sebi's going along, drop them into the Q&A box. And we have lots of people from the team who'll be there collecting your questions. And there'll be a Q&A section at the end. So we'll hopefully get to all of your questions. If there's anything really pressing that's stopping you understanding something and I see it keeps coming up, then I'll interrupt you, Sebi, if that's all right.
Yes, that's okay. Yes, I love questions from our users. Great, so let's go ahead and let's get started with EditorX. So I opened up this blank editor here. And as you can see, just from the start, we have a really blank canvas and workspace. So we can go ahead and actually so I can show you guys the canvas, we can resize this canvas and work in different screen sizes and different viewport sizes. And if I want to go ahead and work on tablet, I can go to tablet, I can go to mobile as well. And I can actually just use these buttons here as well to navigate between the different breakpoints. So this is a really, really great experience because you can edit and check your design at the same time. So to make sure that you're doing the right actions that you wanted. Okay, and then we can take a look at the top bar. In the top bar, we have the typical site actions under here. Preview, publish, all these things here. Dev mode, this is if you're trying to add some logic on your website or even build some robust applications. Help is where you can find a lot of resources in order to continue learning. You can also find Academy X and the forum there that Maria mentioned before, and some really great tools in order to communicate with the product team. We have the feedback option, requesting features, and also reporting bug. This actually goes directly to my team, and we answer these ourselves. Great. So let's take a look and see how we can edit on the actual website. So on the left-hand side, we have the add button. This is actually the add panel. The add panel actually is where you can find all the different components that you can add on your website. Here's a section where you can quickly add any component on your site, and all you do is just drag and drop. It's a simple experience of just dragging and dropping stuff onto a stage. And then you can find other types of content here. You can find sections. These sections are pre-built, designed sections by our very skilled EditorX designers. And these aren't just sections that you can use throughout your site to lay out your content. You can also use these to learn and understand how to build the same exact layout or similar layout, because you can just drag them into the site and just see how they're actually built. There's also wireframes in here if you're looking to get something that's a little bit more easier to work with. Great, and then we have layouting tools. So we have container boxes, which are just containers on your site. Layouters, which are flex boxes that you can use on your site. Repeaters, repeating content. Light boxes are any pop-up banners, anything that's appearing on top of the page. You can go ahead and do that, set triggers on your page, all these awesome things. This typical content you add on your site, text, button, media. And then we can see some business solutions as well available here. Blog, e-commerce, online bookings, events, members area. And also we have a content manager where you can create one design and create a dynamic pages off of this design, and also manage your content inside of here, just like any other CMS. Great, moving on to the next icon here, we have the layers panel. Layers panel actually represents the current structure on your page. So this is where you can see anything related to your page. You can click into any element and it will actually navigate to it. You can see here, if I click on this text, it navigates there. If I click on this box, it navigates there, So it's easy for me to find and work on what I need to and understand what's going on my page at the current time. Then we have the site master. Site masters is where you can save and reuse sections. You can just right click on here and set as master. And then this will basically be a section that can reuse on different pages and select which pages it shows up on. Pages panel, where you manage your pages. Theme manager, where you can manage your text and color themes, and also use this as a means of improving your workflow and saving time and not having to do the same changes over and over. You change it once here and it updates across your site. Then we have the app market, where we have hundreds and hundreds of different professional business solutions available for you for any project type. I really advise you, when you get a chance, to see our full catalog here. All right, now moving over to the right-hand side, we have actually this panel that we created specifically for EditorX called Inspector. The Inspector panel actually shows you all the properties related to the current selected element. So in this case, I've selected the section, and I have the size option here that's selected, and I can see all the different properties of that. I can see the scroll behavior. If I click on this text I added before, I will also see all the different options on here. So great. So now we've covered the basics of the workspace. So let's go ahead and actually get to building the site. So for the sake of this webinar demo, I've gone ahead and already uploaded all the media that we need for the site. So that way we don't need to work on. But I'm going to go ahead and access my media manager. And I'm very particular, and I really like to have everything nicely organized. So I actually organize everything by section type. I'm going to go ahead and just add this in here. And I'm going to go ahead and add an image. Great. So we'll go ahead and start working on this image. So first thing you'll notice as I drop this image is that basically as I click and drag this around, you'll see that basically there's these dotted lines. These dotted lines actually represent the docking. So what is docking? Docking actually represents the alignment and margins of an element. So in this case, this image is aligned to the left side of the section and also to the bottom of the section. But you can also see how far away it is from it as well. So in this case, let's just see, since it's basically aligned to the bottom, when the bottom moves, the image moves. When the left moves, the image moves. So this is what docking does actually. So helps you kind of create this responsive behavior right off the bat. And you can actually move it around. You'll see that it actually keeps on changing where it's aligned to. And if you actually just want to keep it aligned somewhere, you can hold command. I'm holding command or control for those of you on PC. And you can actually override the auto docking. So it can actually won't override whatever you're doing. Cool, so let's go ahead and start working on this image. So from start, you probably have noticed that when I was resizing this, it actually kind of scales down. So what's going on here is that most elements on Editor X, we set them up to automatically be scaling or be fluid while you're actually resizing the window. So this fluid element, basically, once the window becomes smaller, so does the element. In this case, we can see here that the width is 20%. And basically, this indicates that it's taking 20% of the section size. So that's what is going on here. And also images and other media containers, just as videos, are set to scale proportionally on the site. So that means that anytime that the width decreases, so does the height, and vice versa, basically. So basically, let's go ahead and add some values in here. So we'll go ahead and set up here a width of 25%. And we'll go ahead and put 7 from the left and 7 from the right. So I'm adding, what I'm doing here is I'm adding margins from the inspector. And you would see that it actually reflects directly on stage. You can do it on stage or you can do it in the inspector. Because I have a very particular design I'm trying to achieve, and I'm very, I really like to be pixel perfect. I prefer to lay it out on stage and then, put the right numbers on the inspector. Great, so now we have, this is docked here, it scales like this. Let's go ahead and add a second image now. Okay, heroes section. Okay. Now we're gonna go ahead and put this on the top right. Now, in order to put it on the top right, I can either just drag it in there, put the margins, or I can just use this alignment tool. So I can just align it to the top and then align it to the right. And now you can see it's aligned to the top right. And you can actually just to double check, you can see the margins inside the inspector that they represent 0 values all the way. So that means it's aligned perfectly on the top right. Let's go ahead and resize this a little bit. So we'll put it at 30%, and great. So now let's just take a look and see what we're working with. Just resizing, nice. So they're both scaling proportionally. Looks really good thus far. Remember, we're trying to create here a section that is scaling proportionally. Everything is scaling together as the width of the screen also changes. Great, so we're gonna go ahead and add some text. Gonna add it from the add panel. Okay, let's give this Sam Milo. Okay, this text is a little bit too small, so let's go ahead and just make it visible for everyone. And it's a nice title, it's a big title, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay, actually I want to drag this section down for a second here just so you have some space. Okay, so now we have the text here. We're gonna go ahead and do a little bit more formatting. I'm gonna go ahead and give it some loud color here. 1 second, just put in the value here. 9cc0, okay, there we go. That's saved. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. I'm just gonna add some margins here actually. Sorry, I mean spacing. There we go. Just saw the extra spacing. I wanted to make it smaller. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just take a look and see how this resizes now. So here we can see that when I'm resizing, it's actually, you know, the text is not scaling like the images. So I want this to scale because like I said, I want everything to scale proportionally. So let's go ahead and actually modify the size of the text a little bit. So when I'm editing the text, you'll see this icon right here, which is actually the scaled text icon. I can click on it and change the values here. I'm just gonna go ahead and put 24 by 200. Okay, that's great. And now let's take a look. Nice. So now it's scaling proportionally. By the way, what I'm doing here is I really enjoy to add an element, modify and see how it behaves, you know, along the way. So this is the great thing about using EditorX, where you can just use these drag handles and just check to see if it's working as you wanted it to work. So nice. So it's looking great. So I'm going to go ahead and add a second text box. In this case, I actually want to add it directly from the right click. Under right click, you should be able to see that it says quick add. So I can just click on here and select title. And that just adds a title to my screen. And then let's go ahead and do the same modifications that we did before. Real quickly. Just give me a second here, sorry. Actually, we're just gonna do copy element from design just to save us some time. We can just copy, I just basically did right click and showed I can copy the element's design and paste it into the new element. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and change the text here. UI, UX designer, that's what Sam does. We're gonna have to give it a little bit of space here. Okay, move it right about here. Okay, great. So now I'm gonna resize the window. You can see the text is scaling just like we wanted, so that's great. But there's an issue. The text is getting smaller and the space between them is also getting really small. Sorry, it's increasing. So let's go ahead and actually see what we can do in this case. So what's going on here is basically that there's no relation between the two elements, and we want to create some relation between them. So what we can do is actually multi-select them, and then you're gonna get an option that's called stack. So when I click stack, it adds this little thin line here, which is a margin between the two elements. So now these two elements have a margin that's defined, and I can just resize, and you can see that they actually keep that margin that is defined along the way. For this case, I'm just gonna put 0 margin because I want them to be pretty close to each other. So let's just put 0 margin. Great. So now let's just work a little bit more with the stack. I'm just gonna modify the sizing here just so that we can make sure that it looks how we want. We have the right positioning here. Need to dock it to all sides and just put 0 values here. Okay, great. And then we're gonna go ahead and also move these text boxes using the margins. So I'm gonna go ahead and add margin of 6%. Actually, first I need to dock it to both sides before I do that. And then I'll do margin of 6%. And then we're gonna go ahead and move this one as well, dock it to both sides and add a margin of 28%. We can also remove this one because it's not needed. Okay, so everything is looking a lot cleaner. Let's go ahead and add some color here just so that we can make sure that everything looks as we wanted it to look. Go ahead and I'll put in, there we go. Great, so now we have this text here. We'll change a little bit of coloration just so that it's pops out a little bit more, the name of Sam Milo. There we go. Great. So now let's take a look and see what we're working with. You can see that now the text seems to be really well positioned. It's not moving weirdly or anything like that. But the image here is still moving down. So what's going on here is actually something related to sizing of the section. We have a section that is defined with 939 pixel minimum height, and also high auto. So what does high auto mean? High auto indicates that the height of the section is going to be relative to whatever content is inside. So the content inside is controlling the size of the section. But because we have a minimum height, the section has to be at least 939 pixel high. And because the content is not more than 939, basically we run into an issue where the size of the section is not, the height is not changing, but the width is, and we want everything to scale together. So in this case, we're gonna go ahead and actually modify the minimum height and just get rid of it. We can just keep the height as auto, and we'll see now what behavior it has. You'll see that when I scale, it actually kind of keeps everything proportionally scaling now. So great. Now we'll just kind of add some more spacing stuff, just so that basically the image is in the right position. We're just going to push the section down a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and add a margin from the top of 8% and the margin from the bottom of 13%. There we go. And then let's just round off this this section here by adding our logo, Sam Milo. Okay. Great, and we're gonna go ahead and just resize it just a bit. Okay, and 1 second. And then we're gonna go ahead and just put our value of what we want. This, by the way, is an SVG image that I'm using. And I want it to be from the top and left, both 2%. Seems like I was able to get it on stage, so that's amazing. Great, so just what we wanted. Let's see what it looks like as we scale down. So thus far, I've only showed you desktop design. I haven't showed you what it looks like as I scale down to tablet or mobile, but let's go ahead and take a look and see what happens. So you can see as we scale down, it actually keeps a pretty nice design still, even though the screen is way smaller. And this is because we took the approach of creating a proportionally scaling site. So every section, so everything looks pretty well in this case. So next up, in this header, we're probably missing one of the most important parts of a website, which is obviously the navigation. So what we're going to do now is actually add a navigation, but we're not going to add it on the top. We're actually going to add it on the sides. We're going to create a sidebar navigation. Just so you know, we have in Editor X, we have these sections that are horizontal, and then we also have vertical sections. And you can add the vertical sections off these buttons on the left-hand side. When you click on it, you should get the option to add content in here, just like any other section. It works the same thing. You can also resize them and however it wants. And actually, what it does, it actually pushes the grid, the page grid, to resizes it in order to fit all the content inside of the page. So it's great that it does this. Let's go ahead and just get rid of this for a second. I've actually taken the liberty beforehand of designing a sidebar because I wanted to save us the time here. But this is actually inside of the add panel. We have this section called my designs. This section is any design I've saved from previous projects. I can right click on any section and select save to my designs. And this will be usable across any projects I have in the future as well. And I can also reuse it on the same site, obviously. So in this case, I'm going to add a sidebar. Just give me a second here. We're going to add this one. It's going to add it here. And if I want to move it to the right, all I need to do is just click on it, right click on it and select move to right. It's over here. Now, something you'll notice right away that when I moved it to the right is that you can see that the actual menu is not visible on the first fold so much, we want everything, you know, the whole sidebar should be moving with the page so it's accessible at any point. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this sidebar to be fixed. I can go ahead and select fixed, and then beautiful. Now it scrolls with the page and it keeps its place at all times. And we'll see what it looks like on tablet and on mobile still. On mobile, it doesn't look so good, but we'll go ahead and make some changes in a few seconds. So great. So now, now it's time for us to make some changes on the smaller breakpoints. So in this case, we're going to be making some changes on our tablet. Now, the way that designing across breakpoints works inside of Editor X is that we follow a cascading rule. So any changes I made on desktop will automatically cascade down to tablet and also to the mobile phone. But if I want to override those changes, I can go ahead and override them at any point just by going to the tablet and also overriding them. So let's just make a simple change right now. I can go ahead and right click on this image and select don't display. Don't display basically just hides it for the breakpoint, so I don't see it anymore. If I go over to desktop now, you can see the desktop version still has it, so they're not affecting each other, they're separate. Great, so now that we have done that, let's go ahead and make a few more changes. First of all, let's move this image. I want to make this a little bit smaller. So let's go ahead and do 40%. Sorry. And then also we'll dock it to the bottom as well to 0 pixels. So now you'll see it's kind of stretched to the bottom. And also we want to make a few other changes as well. I'll just get rid of this minimum height because we don't need it. And we'll change also the text scaling as well to be something better for the tablet. Okay. And you'll see here as well, do the same thing. Okay, and we'll change this color to white. There we go, nice, beautiful. And I want these two text boxes. Oh, sorry, I guess I didn't press to apply, my bad. Okay, there we go. And then we're gonna go ahead and set the margins the same because I want these two text boxes to be right on top of each other. So I'll go ahead and put 6%, just like we put before. And you'll see that they're both right on top of each other. Now it looks like one uniform title. Great, and then we're gonna go ahead and also make a few changes to the stack. We'll change this to 10% and 10%. There we go. Something you also notice is the logo became a little bit small. So I'm gonna go ahead and just add a minimum width to this logo. So that way it doesn't become smaller than 80 pixels. There we go. So now we can see we have these changes between desktop to tablet. It adapts the design according to whatever overrides I set. And actually on mobile, because the design is cascading down to mobile, it also makes those changes I did on tablet, on mobile as well. And if I want to take it one step further in my design, I can go ahead and just design the mobile as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and right click on this sidebar because it's really large, it's in the way, I don't need it right now. So let's go ahead and set it to not display. Okay, I'm gonna make my screen a little bit wider just so everyone can see really well. Okay, and then we're gonna go ahead and work on our mobile redesign. So we're gonna go ahead and change the text back to green. Just to change it here, change it to green. And then we're gonna change the margins of this stack we're giving it some margin so there's space later on to add a menu on the top. So we're gonna go ahead and give it a top margin of 35. And a bottom margin, excuse me, actually I'd prefer to do it this way, 20 and then 35 for the bottom margin. Okay, there we go. So now we have this, and we'll also make some changes to the docking here. We'll do 40% docking for this image. Okay, so now we have a little bit of space to add a menu. So what type of menu can we add here? I want to add a hamburger menu. because those are very popular with mobile sites nowadays. So let's go ahead and just drag and drop this into place. I'm going to give it a size that I want, so I'll do 30 by 30. And then also let's just change the color because no one can see it with the same color as the background. And then I want to keep the distance between the sides of these two. So let's go ahead and do, we'll go ahead and put this as top 2% and right 2%. And then we'll go ahead and put 0 for this. Second.
Just a question,
sorry,
Sebi.
I did it the wrong side, guys. Made a mistake. Yes.
No worries. It's about these numbers. I see you've got so many very specific numbers and styling and the docking and the margins and everything. I guess as a designer, you do initially trial and error and figure out what works best by eye. And now you've recorded what you think was right. And
yes. I built many sites on EditorX, and you know, over time you start learning what you like, what you don't like. But yes, these numbers, I'm not just pulling out of a hat. I'm actually, you know, I've used them before in other sites. So thank you for asking. Great question. Okay, great. So now we have the hamburger menu set up. Now let's actually set up the actual menu. So if we click on the hamburger menu, you'll get the option to open the menu. And this actually opens a container. This container is called the menu container, where you find the actual navigation of your menu. But just like any other container EditorX, you can even add a grid to it, or you can even add elements, any type of elements in here. In this case, I really want to show my logo anytime anyone's accessing the menu. So I'm gonna go ahead and find logo from the media. Second, it's just the same logo I used before. I'm gonna resize it so that it fits according to how I want. Go ahead and put 30%. Okay, put it right about here. And then also I want to add a social bar here as well. So I can just drag a social bar into place and just resize it however I want as well. And maybe let's put, make it vertical and make the icons a little bit smaller. Okay, so once I do have other pages, obviously we're only working on the home page right now, so it looks a little bit empty. But once we have other pages, you know, everything will look a little bit more cohesive. Great. So I can also just close this later on and just it hides like that. Great. So let's take a look and see what we have thus far. So we have a design for desktop, a design for tablet, and design for mobile, and they all look they're all very fluid in terms of how, you know, how it looks across all the different breakpoints. So it's great. Great, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next section. I've actually already added it, created it from a previous site. And I'm gonna add it right in here. We're not gonna go ahead and cover every single section on the site, because this is an overview, and there's going to be future webinars where we're going to cover a lot of different topics, including the grid, layouters, anything related to EditorX. We'll have very specific webinars for those, right, Maria?
Oh, I was on mute, right.
Great. Okay, just to show you guys, this section for the About section is actually scaling proportionally. It's very simple, scaling of text, and also we have a stack here. So that's what's doing the trick in this case. Okay, cool. So moving on to the next section, we're going to actually start working with some grids. I've actually already created the title of this section, so we can go ahead and just use that. Actually, I put it in the wrong place, so let's go ahead and move it up in place. There we go. Now it's in the right place. So we're going to be working with grids. If I go ahead and click on this section, there's going to be an option that says Apply Grid. So what I can do in this case is just apply a grid to my section. And these grids are not just any type of grid. These are CSS grids. So basically, if you've used CSS grids before, you probably know what I'm talking about. But those of you that haven't used it so much, you know, CSS grids are basically an easy way for you to create a layout inside of a container or a section. where basically you're separating the different parts into cells or grid areas. So in this case, we have 4 cells here, 4 cells here, 1, 1, 1. You know, we have all these different areas, and I can create my own custom areas. So just to show you, we're gonna go ahead and add a, let's add some media here. Sorry, so let's see here, recent collaborations. All right, so now we have this image. I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller and move it around. First thing you'll notice as I'm playing around with the grid is that the image is docking to the grid lines, not to a section anymore. And this is because with the grid, you're basically creating separate areas inside of it. So in this case, this image is docking to the area of the grid cells that it's covering. So in this case, it's covering these 4 grid cells. So it's part of this grid area now. And what I actually wanted to do for this particular design is actually have it stretched. So I'm gonna stretch it. Okay. And now it's covering those 4 grid cells that I was covering before. For those of you who didn't see it, basically there's a stretch button on top of the image, and this is available for most of our components on EditorX. Okay, so then we have the image. Next up is adding some text. So let's go ahead and play around with some text. So quick add again, add some title. Okay, put the title here. We'll go ahead and change the coloration so everyone can see what we're working with. Let's set it some green. Okay, and then we're gonna go ahead and also change the font type. I'm gonna put Helvetica because everyone likes Helvetica. So let's go ahead and put Helvetica in this case. And then we're also gonna make it scale. What we want to achieve essentially in this section is also the proportional scaling, just like we have throughout most of the website. Everything's going to be kind of proportionally scaling. So we're going to do the scaling again here for the text from 16 to 70. See how it looks. Okay, great. And now we can add the text that we wanted. So I wanted to say here, Rose and May are 2 collaborators Sam worked with. And then we're going to also add some docking options here. 4%, and then we'll do, we'll do 3%, and then 4% here, and then 3%. I actually put the wrong value here, so let's go ahead and fix it. There we go. Oops, wrong value, click the wrong button. Sorry, there we go. Okay, 3, 4, 3, great. So now we have this grid area set up. Let's go ahead and work on a few more of these. So let's go ahead and add a container. So I'm gonna go to quick add, drag and drop a container from here. Let's just stretch it onto this grid area. As you can see, because it's only covering these 2 grid cells, it only stretches across the two grid cells that it's covering. So I click on the brush icon. We can go ahead and remove the icons from here. So I'm designing this section. Let's go ahead and actually put the loud green again. Okay. And then we're gonna go ahead and add some text again. So in this case, I just want to duplicate. I don't want to have to do the hassle of redesigning the text again. So let's just drag and drop it in here. We'll change the coloration. Well, let's put some white in this case. Great. Great, so now we have the text here, and then we'll go ahead and just set up, just making sure everything's the same. Great, and then we're gonna go ahead and just go here and put 3, 4, 3. Make sure it's also docked to the right. Just make sure we're stretching it here as well. We just wanna make sure it's docked to all sides, so I'll fix this one as well. There we go. Here, the text should actually say, we'll say Magic Clinic. This is another collaborator. And I think that maybe I need a different color actually. Let's just put black, there we go. Now it's easier to read. Sorry for those of you that were having a hard time reading that. Let's go ahead and just add another container here. Okay, let's resize it. There we go. And then we're gonna go ahead and give it some coloration again.
Sebi,
this
can I
case.
interrupt you one more time?
Sure, yes, yes.
We just have a very specific question here about the stretching an image across a grid cell.
Sure.
The actual question is, how can you adjust an image so it only stretches out to 2 of the 8 boxes in the grid?
To 2 of the 8 boxes. Well, I did do it before. I'll show you guys in a second. Basically, when I have this image, whichever grid lines it's covering or grid cells it's covering, that's where it's going to stretch. So if I only want to stretch over 2, I can just go like this. It doesn't matter what size it is right now because I'm going to stretch it anyways. And I just click stretch, and then it stretches only those 2 grid cells.
And there's also a manual way you can do it. There's another question here about you can start from row this, end on row that. I think it's in the inspector panel.
Yes. So you can manage. Yes, you can manage the location of the actual the element inside of the inspector panel in find grid area. For those of you that have used CSS grids before, you would understand that basically you can set which column the element starts and ends in. So in this case, if I change this to 2, you'll see that it actually now is in here and also all the way to here, but I want it to be in 3. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Happens sometimes. And then yes, so yes, we have, if you're one of those that likes to use the inspector, more than welcome to use it in this case. It's actually very useful for the cases where you have a lot of layers on the grid. It's very useful.
Awesome. Thank
Okay.
You.
Yeah, thank you. We'll go ahead and duplicate this. Okay, we'll just resize it. Let's go ahead and give it a new name. This one will make white for sure. We have to have one with white text. There we go. Okay, so now we have the white text. We'll go ahead and set the values for this as well. So we'll go ahead and put 6, 8, 6. There we go. That looks good. And we'll do duplicate of this as well. So let's go duplicate, paste it right in here. And then do 6, 8, 6. Coloration. Okay, let's set it to dark color. There we go. Okay, great. So now we have it designed. So let's take a look and see the responsive properties of this grid. I haven't played around with it too much, so we might need to make some adjustments. So as you can see, one of the things that you'll notice just by looking by the eye is that you can see that the width is actually changing, but the height isn't changing so much as the width is. So what we need to do in this case is actually take a deeper dive into the grid and understand what values we need to go and adjust. So if I click on the grid and select edit grid, it brings me into the edit grid mode. This grid mode allows you to basically change any value in your grid and adjust the columns and rows as well. So in this case, we have 4 columns, all with 1 FR. FR indicates that it's a fraction. So we have 4 fractions of the section that are cut into equal pieces. If I wanted for whatever reason to make this a little bit larger, then I would go ahead and put it like this. And now you can see it's twice as large. So let's go ahead and just put it back to 1 FR. And basically, inside of the grid, you can actually manage a lot of different unit types. We have fractions, we have auto, we have percent, pixels, viewport width, viewport height, all these different types. We're going to take a deeper look into the grid in a future webinar. But there's a lot of power here inside the grid, and you can be really precise on how you want the behavior of your grid to have. So in this case, I'm just.
I think, sorry, but I think someone from the team, maybe they'll share in the chat with you guys our advanced grid lesson on editing grid in the academy. That might help you really dig into all of these adjustments there. Maybe Sharon or somebody will share it. Sorry, go ahead.
And that's okay. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and set it to 1 FR for both of these because I want them to equal basically before we had a minimum, and we don't want the minimum because we want it to just scale without any limitations. So let's go ahead and put fraction again. Okay. I should have changed this text. Let's go ahead and just change it real quick. Free mass. Okay. And now let's just go resize. Okay, so it's looking okay. There's one more thing that we're missing here. And what's happening is that basically the width is getting smaller, but the height isn't changing so much. So what we want to do, because we want things to scale proportionally, we can actually relate the height to the width of the screen. So what we're gonna do here, instead of using a pixel for minimum height, we're gonna go ahead and use a little trick of putting minimum height with VW, viewport width. So 1 VW unit indicates 1% of the viewport. So viewport indicates the screen. So we're taking 1% times 40. So 40% of the viewport screen is what the height will get. And now you're gonna see that they all scale proportionally. Now, the reason why this is happening is because these cells are all perfect squares, and we're scaling both the width and the height at the same rate in this case. So that's how it works. So you can see how it scales, and it can go really, really well as you scale down to tablet, still looks good. You go to mobile, and it looks okay. Maybe we want to make some adjustments in this grid. So let's go ahead and click on it and select Adjust Grid. In Adjust Grid, you can actually select a new layout for your grid just with a simple click of a button. And what this does is that in Editor X, we actually created the logic and a smart system that allows us to relay out your grid into different layouts. So when I click 2 to 4, okay, now we have a new grid layout and it looks pretty nice. Most likely it's a little bit too large for me right now, so let's go ahead and just put 500 pixels. There we go. And now we have a beautiful scaling website that will continue to scale down and move along the way. By the way, there's an issue. Yeah.
We had a specific question now about the customizing at breakpoints. Could you explain briefly
Sure.
what changes made to smaller breakpoints can affect the larger breakpoints? In general, we have this cascading rule, but is there anything that will affect desktop?
Yeah. So basically, breakpoints are not a technology we created ourselves. These are something derived from CSS media queries. And the way that breakpoints work is that they're basically overriding anything in terms of design. So anything that you're changing in design, like text color, text size, position, size, these are all design properties. But there's a few properties that are specific to HTML, which is the structure of the page. So anytime you change the structure of the page, for example, if you were to assign, attach an image to a new container, you're basically changing the structure of the page. So in these cases, because you're changing the structure of the HTML, it affects every single breakpoint. Even if you're editing from the mobile, I'm just going to show you guys real quickly. I'm on the mobile and I've moved this around. It says attach to container. At this point, I'm going to be changing the structure of the page. So if I do that, you'll see that when I go to desktop, it did affect it. So, just keep those things in mind, that any changes to the actual structure of the site will affect across every single breakpoint. The other one is data. So data indicates anything where if I change the text here, if I make a change here, if I put an E at the end here, it's also going to appear on desktop, obviously. So just keep that in mind as well, that data and the structure are the two things that basically will change. Cool.
Thanks. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. So let's go ahead and continue on our website. So we'll go ahead and actually add a new section in this case. This section, I'm not going to go super in depth, but I want to kind of show you guys a little bit about images and how they work on Editor X. When you upload an image, we have a system called the Smart Focal Point, which we basically identify the subject and we center the image on the subject. In this case, we have 3, but it finds the center subject and it centers the image on the subject. So these 3 models here. And in this case, we have the image that, is being covered by the text, the gentleman right here. And we want to change the focal point that was defined previously. So all I need to do is just click on the image and click on focal point. It will load up this little panel over here. And I can just move this focal point around to any part of the image. If I want to drop it here, it will actually change. If I put it here, you'll see how it changes. In this case, I just want to put it right on the chin, so that way it's still visible. His face, okay, just a little bit more up. Okay, great. So now we have this image that is, repositioned, and we can also add some nice scrolling effects to this image. So if I want to just click on scroll behavior and select parallax, parallax basically gives you a depth effect of the image. Basically, it scrolls at a different rate. Let's take a look and see what we've built so far, and also see this image, how it behaves. Okay, so let's just scroll down, and you'll see how great this is. And this also will work on mobile as well. If you go down all the way to mobile, you'll see that it actually will also have this parallax effect, and you can see the rest of our design. So everything's coming along pretty well, guys. So pretty happy with the design we're creating. But let's go ahead and continue adding some stuff here. I'm gonna go ahead and go into edit site again, and we're gonna actually add a new section that goes along with this section for latest designs. It's gonna be the repeater section. Repeaters are another container type that we have inside of EditorX, which allows you to basically create a design for your section. And sorry guys, my internet's a little bit slow here. It allows you to create a design for your the container, and each item basically has the same design across the way. So here in this case, we have all these different items along the repeater, and if I move this around, you see how it moves across every single item as well. Let's put it back so that way it doesn't move too much. Other things you can do with repeaters is you can actually manage the layout and change how many items are per row. So if I want each row to have 2, if I want to have 1 or 3, I can go ahead and do that as well. In this case, I don't want 11, I want 3. Let's keep it at 3. Oh, sorry about that. And you can also see that if I go to this other breakpoint, I can just customize it, because I want this to actually be 2. So let's just switch it to 2. And now you can see on desktop, we have 3. On here, we have 2. And then on mobile, I actually want to be a little bit more fancy, change the layout again and change it to a slider. Slider basically creates overflow that you can actually scroll. You can create like a scrollable container where people can see the rest of the content just by scrolling to the right. Great.
Awesome.
How are we doing with questions there, Maria?
I think it's looking good.
Okay, great. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear your guys' questions. So ask them away.
Yeah, we're running a little bit out of time. So we have one more section, right? And then we can.
Yes, last section. Okay. So let's go ahead and move over to the last section. So I'm going to show you guys one of my favorite section types, which is the layouter. Sorry, container types, not section types, which is the layouter. The layouter is our Flexbox technology. Sorry, just to go here. Okay, let's do that again. The layouter is our Flexbox technology. Basically, what happens inside the layouter is that all the items that you have inside of it are equally distributed the space in a really smart manner, and it allows you to actually create a responsive section or container with a few simple steps. You don't really need to do too much. You can see here that it kind of changes as you go away, and I haven't done anything to it yet. This is a blank layouter. Other things you can do, inside the layouter, it's built out of items. And here you can see that I have 4 items. I can move them around and reposition them wherever I want them to be. I can resize them. I can also duplicate them and create new ones. So we have 5, and just play around with the layout in this case. So we also have, by the way, we have inside the layout, managed layout, we can see very similar options to what we had in the repeater: columns, rows, mosaic, slider. Let's go ahead and just add our last section here so that we can go ahead and continue. Sorry, excuse me, guys. I clicked on the wrong thing. Actually, what I did just there is I selected the wrong element. The right way to do it is when you click on an element, you should be able to see that there's this blue breadcrumbs right here. And these blue breadcrumbs allow you to navigate to the next available parent. So if I click on there, I can click on the item, then layouter. Now I've selected the layouter. I want to delete the layouter, I accidentally deleted the wrong item. This can happen a lot, specifically when you're stretching stuff or you have large items on the page.
Well, that's super useful. Thanks for explaining that. That's good.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so then let's go ahead and just add a last section here, the layouter section. Just like I showed you guys before, we have, I just need to move this around, okay? So just like I showed you guys before, you know, all these items can be resized, and as you resize them, the layouter will take care of all the hassle of relayouting all your content. You know, you don't have to move stuff around. It kind of helps you along the way. So all I wanted to do in this case, I just want this to be on tablet. Let's go ahead and make some changes here. I want this image to be on the left-hand side. Oh, excuse me, there we go. Drop it right there. And then maybe the get in touch, let's make it a little bit smaller. And then there we go. This, maybe we can make it bigger as well. There we go. So you can actually resize them however you want and do the same thing on mobile and also on the desktop. So just like anything else, all the changes cascade down. And that's pretty much it for today, guys. But let's take a final look at what we built today. So we built this responsive section using text scale and scaling images, and the section's also scaling. We built this section using the grid, where it also is scaling, and we're using VW units in order to do some magic there. And then we have parallax effect, repeaters, and the layouter as well. And that's it for today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sebi. I think our brains are all exploding. That was so much to take in. And I know it was like a very quick deep dive. Actually, yes. Not a deep dive, a very quick overview. And there will be future webinars where we will deep dive into different sections. But I hope this gave you a little bit of an insight into the basics of getting your site up and running on EditorX. Sebi, I know maybe some of you need to go because I know we've run over slightly, but I do have a couple of questions that
sure.
I'd love to ask you that the guys have been collecting for us. So first up, I don't see. I'm so sorry, 1 second, give me a sec.
That's okay.
Okay, I'll just go for it. I don't see the ones in the doc, so I'll pick some from here. Can you manually add an anchor and place it wherever you want?
Yes.
In the add panel. Could you show us that?
It's not from the. We don't have the option to add the anchor directly from the add panel, but okay. What you can do is click on any single element. And then inside the inspector, you can find the anchor option and just add an anchor to it. And just you give it a name and just add it to anywhere. So you can basically just add an anchor anywhere. There needs to be an element in that location, basically.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. Also, another question here. Somebody's asking, I don't think we will cover adding code today, but might there be another webinar in the future about adding custom code? Yes, there is I can answer this one. There are lots of custom code capabilities on EditorX, and we will in the future, hopefully the near future, do a webinar where we talk about all of the coding possibilities with the IDE, connecting to APIs, and stuff will be covered soon. Another question here about the product pages. Where was this one, Rotem? Moving across a catalog from a store. Is there a way to migrate a product catalog from the old version from the Wix editor? If you have built one on Wix, can you migrate it over to EditorX? I have a feeling there's something like that in the pipeline.
Okay, so first of all, I know that everyone's really interested in figuring out if they can migrate from Wix to EditorX. currently we don't have the possibility of migrating them, but it's something we're really working hard on. And we really want to give you guys this possibility. As far as the product catalog is concerned, actually in the store, you can actually export your catalog and then just re-upload it into a new site. So that's like a little bit of a hack that you can do in order to save yourself some time and not have to wait for us to get to a solution. But we're definitely working on it. We've heard all your guys' feedback, and we know that it's a really top priority for you guys as well.
Okay, cool. I know that we've run out of time, so I think that's all the questions we can do for today, Sebi.
Great.
So thank you so much. But if you do have questions which we haven't answered, please go over to EditorX/community. You'll find our forum there, and the product managers are live and online there. Maybe not right now, they might want to have some supper. But they are there answering questions, and feel free to keep the conversation going there, and we'll try and get to all of your questions.
Just thank you so much, Maria. Just to correct you, it's editorxcommunity.com.
Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I hope wish you guys the best of luck with EditorX, and hope to hear some feedback in the future from all of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sebi.
Thank you.